Let's go. Punk has been here this week. Cody has been here this week. We've had a hell of a week of wrestlers in studio, and those other ones joining us like Trick Williams as well as Finn Balor yesterday. We have been loaded up. You can get it all on the podcast. You heard some of the audio there about the Philadelphia Eagles. One of the biggest topics we had all year long was about the champions, the defending champions at the time, and their star wide receiver, A.J. Brown. Does he want to be there? Does he not want to be there? Critical of the offense, so on and so forth. Well, Howie Roseman, the general manager, was on the Rich Eisen show, noon until 3 Eastern time here on ESPN Radio, and was asked about whether or not A.J. Brown will be with the Eagles next season.
I think I've been really consistent in talking about how hard it is to find great players, and AJ's been a great player for us. Not a good player, a great player for us. He does have tremendous character, and so I think from our perspective, we're looking to add to our roster. We're not looking to subtract. And so, I've been really consistent in saying that.
Okay, before we get to part 2 of this, Howie Roseman speaks, and did he say anything?
No,
about AJ specifically?
He played it perfectly.
Played it perfectly. Okay, now, part 2. Peter Strager, our buddy who covers the NFL, of course, and NFL analyst and Get Up. He was on Get Up, and he had this to say about maybe a change of tune a little bit inside the Eagles organization.
There is a difference in tone from the trade deadline when Howie Roseman said to everybody, absolutely, off the table, we're not trading A.J. Brown, to here in Indy where it seems like he's almost saying, well, I'll never just say no to listening to offers. A.J. Brown's Twitter handle is always open. Well, Howie Roseman this time of the year is always listening. Mm-hmm. That's his mantra. Offer me. What do you got? Truth of the matter is it is cost prohibitive for them to trade him before June 1st. That's a $40 million dead cap hit. So there are financial barriers here for the A.J. Brown trade. And to Harry's point, Sean Mannion was one of 17 different offensive coordinator candidates who proposed their plan to the Eagles. 17. He was one of just 7 to make the second round. He showed them cut-ups of how his offense, which is play-action heavy, would work with the personnel that they have there in Philly. That includes A.J. Brown. Howie's always looking to make a deal. He's the best in the business when it comes to that. But he also likes to add, not subtract. The trade of A.J. Brown, they would need something back, and also it would be a really big financial hit.
All right, take all that in. What's going to happen with A.J. Brown?
I have no idea. I think it's absolutely fascinating. I keep going back and forth with this thing because his chief complaint was not being able to be utilized in the way that he thinks he should, not being able to dominate his one-on-one matchup, which is what he's lived for, which is what he said days after winning the Super Bowl. So I am fascinated to see what ends up happening with him and how the organization tries to get their arms around this. And I'm also sitting here thinking about the pressure that's going to be on head coach Nick Sirianni going into this upcoming season. We've lived in a world over the last 12, 13 months where we've just assumed that it's inevitable for the Philadelphia Eagles to divorce A.J. Brown. And I'm wondering now, could we live in a world where A.J. Brown outlasts the head coach Nick Sirianni? I'm just sitting here thinking about it. It's harder to find a guy like A.J. Brown than it is to find a coach that can put the Philadelphia Eagles, this roster in particular, in position to contend for championships. And we've seen that this organization, above all the others in the NFL, treat the head coaching position as something that's fungible. So I would just say, when it comes to the A.J. Brown of it all, do the Eagles have an A.J. Brown problem, or is this an issue that the head coach can't figure this out? And that it's been allowed to languish for so long, and it undermined their attempt to defend their title.
See, and I tend to think that if A.J. Brown stays there, so will Nick Sirianni. Because if A.J. Brown stays and he is productive in Sean Mannion's new offense, that probably means that the team is having more success, that they figured something out that was lacking last year when Kevin Patullo was calling plays. And if Sean Mannion has developed these schemes that are going to be reliant on players like A.J. Brown, if I'm the Eagles, why would I want to subtract that talent? Howie Roseman is so shrewd in so many ways, but Evan, we always do the fake press conference with you. He couldn't have really handled this any better.
That's great.
Because he not only was so glowing in his praise for A.J. Brown as a football player, he talked about his character. So if he does stay there, he's essentially telling you, we see something internally that maybe you're not getting with the tweets or the commentary that he's making externally, we're good with it. But he also left the door open. It's not smart for me to not be taking calls. I'm the general manager. This is what I do. He left room in every lane, whatever they choose to go down, for us to say, well, he did tell us this all along.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to take calls, give out the number. He should have done that. 888-SAY-ESPN. No, but I think I've always assumed that this is a two-step process. This is trade A.J. Brown for a premium pick, use that premium pick to get a premium player. Because I've never assumed that this was like the Eagles are going to trade him and then just draft guys, right? I know they're great at drafting.
But who's the premium player that you're going to go after? Because chances are they're not as good as A.J. Brown.
That's correct. But could they be, and I hate to use this word with him because per all reports, not a bad guy, not a troublemaker, just opinionated. Right? That's like he's opinionated, which he's more than welcome to be. So it becomes a distraction relative to conversation, right? We're conversing about this, and his teammates are asked about that. So I wonder whether it's DJ Moore, whether it's Jalen Waddle, whether somehow it's Marvin Harrison Jr., whether it's guys like that I can envision, Garrett Wilson, in my head getting moved. Are they as good as A.J. Brown? Probably not.
No.
Could they fit currently better than A.J. Brown does? Maybe. Not retroactively. They won a Super Bowl.
Will they, though?
I don't know.
A.J. Brown is one of the best run blockers at the wide receiver position we have in the league. And that's a huge element to the Philadelphia Eagles offense. That's what their formula was when they won a championship a couple of years ago. So, I understand what you're saying from a personality standpoint. Those guys don't create as much of a challenge in terms of managing day-to-day as A.J. Brown does. Yeah. But A.J. Brown raises the floor for everybody on that offense. The reason why Saquon Barkley was able to go for over 2,000 yards receiving is because defenses were terrified to leave A.J. Brown one-on-one on the outside.
But I got to ask you a follow-up on this. And you admitted this to start this conversation. You said before you gave any take on the football part of it, you said, I have to admit, I'm going back and forth on this. One day it's one thing, the next day it's the other thing. A couple of days ago, you said, I've got to think about this if I'm Nick Sirianni. I got to think about my Eagles' mortality, and I got to think if I potentially may go down and get fired, do I want to go down with him where he may be not in a malicious way, but kind of working against me, and maybe I need to remove him from the equation because I need all of the people working for me? What changed?
What changed for me is listening to what Howie Roseman said in terms of being in the business of keeping great players when you want to be great as a team. So he acknowledges that A.J. Brown is not a good player. He's a great player. Mm-hmm. I think it's also one of those things where you have to acknowledge we've never seen good Jalen Hurts without number 11 out there. We've never seen it. So he's been a playoff caliber quarterback, but remember, they were 9-8 that first year as a full-time starter, and I want to say they started that season 3-6. And Jalen Hurts did not put up huge numbers, as you would expect for a quarterback that's still developing, but still, I know that with A.J. Brown on this team, I am going to get a Super Bowl MVP caliber quarterback if I can make sure that everybody is on the same page. And that's the head coach's responsibility. We talk all the time about Nick Sirianni. What does he actually do? What is his superpower as a head coach? When you look at the job description for head coach, being able to get the most out of your people, being able to manage conflict within your organization, that's a part of being a head coach. It is a leadership position by nature. And right now, when it comes to the A.J. Brown test, Nick Sirianni is failing. So if I'm Howie Roseman, I'm looking at this situation and wondering, do I have an A.J. Brown problem or do I have a Nick Sirianni problem? And as we continue to go through this churn at offensive coordinator, I'm starting to lean toward it being the latter.
Coming up, a QB drafted in the top 5 of the draft has asked out. Who wants him? We'll discuss next. We're on Sportsmanlike, presented by Progressive Insurance.
Hey, this is Rich Eisen. Coming up on tomorrow's show, we're live